Welcome to the Embracing You podcast with your host, Eric Pothen. We are all on our own unique journey to discovering ourselves. Each episode, I will help you navigate the journey within to reconnect with and discover the innate love you have for yourself. This podcast will cover topics from self-love to eating disorders and body image to mental health and to overall well-being. My goal is to help you honor and embrace yourself so you may live your most authentic life. Let's dive in. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Embracing You podcast. I am finally in my first week of school. It's hard to believe that summer break is finally over, but I felt called in the last couple of days to piece together this podcast episode for you all. Today's episode is going to be on a topic that is incredibly important to me, and it's a life value that has been a guiding light for me over the past 2 years or so for more than a couple of reasons. And it is truly a value that is something that will never be compromised or questioned. Today, we are going to spend some time talking about authenticity. Now, I want to start this conversation off with a disclaimer, and that is, me talking about this topic doesn't make me an expert on it. But what I can do is share my thoughts on this topic and hope that it resonates for some of you out there. I'm a human being just like the rest of you. And as much as I would like to have everything together all of the time, I don't. When I think of authenticity, I think of it as an unknown destination. Now you're probably wondering, aren't we supposed to be living life authentically to who we are in the moment? My answer to that is yes, of course. We are constantly evolving into new people every day, learning more about how we operate and growing deeper into who we are. And this is a journey. Do I think that there is a definitive endpoint to finding true authenticity in who we are as individuals? No. Because like I just said, the nature of being a human being is that we are constantly evolving. I think that we should always strive to be our most authentic selves. So let's talk a little bit about what authenticity means and how we can live authentically to who we are in the moment. For me, authenticity is when you live life in alignment with who you are at the core. It means you are living out the values that you believe in and not compromising those values for others. Because if you compromise those values for others only to hold the peace or receive validation, then we start to fall into the category of people pleasing. And that's going to be a topic for another episode. I've certainly been guilty of people pleasing myself, and it's something that I'm constantly working on getting better at. Because claiming my own inner peace is becoming more important than compromising who I am in order to appease others. And for me, I sometimes can feel a little resentful after those moments where I don't prioritize myself and my values. I've dedicated the last 2 years of my life to being unapologetically myself. Now, unapologetically is a pretty strong word, but for me, it's a word that provides intention. And I think it's an appropriate word to use with authenticity, because I believe that when we are living life authentically, we choose to put ourselves and our values first. And sometimes us choosing to live life according to our own values and not the expectations or values others place upon us will sometimes disappoint others. And that's not our responsibility to be in charge of their disappointment. That is something that they are responsible for. So, what have the last 2 years of my life looked like of me trying to be unapologetically myself? That's a great question, and there will be some vulnerable shares as I answer this question. I think one of the biggest ways I've been unapologetically myself over the past 2 years has been honoring my sexuality and living life as an openly gay man, and not being afraid of others knowing and or judging the fact that I'm gay. because I've been on a journey to love and honor that part of myself. It's been an incredibly challenging journey that has been filled with some shame, self-doubt, and a lack of confidence. And while I still have a ways to go with loving and honoring that part of who I am, what I can say is that I'm incredibly proud that I'm allowing myself to live life a little freer. The process of coming out and living life as a gay man reminds me of the process of metamorphosis. More particularly, the stages of when a caterpillar is in its chrysalis and when it breaks free and emerges as a butterfly. Before I came out, I felt like I was trapped. I felt the pressure to live life as a straight man because that's what is typical within our society. We all know the story of man meets woman, man and woman get married, maybe have kids, and live a happy life. And this is all that I knew life to be. For me, there wasn't an option at the time to be gay. I thought my future would be marrying a woman, having children, and living a life that would not bring me happiness, because I wouldn't have been able to honor and live out an important part of my identity. I tried to date women, but would always create excuses as to why things never worked out. It was after many failed dates that I knew deep down that I needed to take a leap of faith and allow myself to explore what it would be like to date men. And let me tell you, I was absolutely terrified of how things would unfold. And me choosing to explore my sexuality was one of the most courageous things I've ever done in my life. And it required me to be vulnerable with myself and to look past the shame, the uncertainty, and the self-doubt, to take steps towards living a life that was more authentic to me. At this point in my journey, I was the caterpillar inside of the chrysalis, starting to transform into a butterfly. Long story short, I eventually found myself in my first relationship with a man. And let me tell you, the dots finally connected. The picture finally came into focus. Things finally started to make a little more sense. And while things felt so right, being in a relationship with another man, there was also a lot of fear that came with it. I wasn't yet out to my family, and I was afraid of how my family would respond. At this point, I was now a butterfly that was about to emerge and break free. However, even though as I was ready to break free, I was afraid to leave a space that provided comfort for me. I knew that I needed to enter the world as someone more evolved, though. I had outgrown that space and knew it was time for me to experience the world in a new way, in a way that was more me, in a way that would allow me to grow and find myself in this world more. I finally harvested enough courage to come out to my family and friends, and let me tell you, when I did, it felt like there were 10,000 pounds lifted off of my shoulders. I feel so very fortunate and grateful to have had such a positive and loving response from my family, friends, and colleagues. And having such positive responses really allowed me to lean into exploring what it meant to live life as an openly gay man. I had finally completed my metamorphic cycle and now had some new exploring to do. Now, I don't want to dig too much deeper into my story here, but in the 2 years of being out, I have learned and uncovered so much about myself. While I really believe that a large part of who I was prior to coming out still remains the same within, there are also parts of myself that I've shed, and there are new parts that I've been able to discover. Like I said, I still have some work to do in the space of learning more about who I am as a gay man and how I operate in this world, but there has been such freedom and release in being able to express myself in ways that align more with who I am. I'm less self-conscious of the tone of my voice. I hold back less in the way I naturally want to respond and interact with others. I'm able to explore how I express myself through my clothing choices more freely and care less about what others think. I know that some of these things may seem small to others, but to me, they're the things that hold me back at times. There are still moments where I feel self-conscious when I begin to explore expressing myself more freely and authentically, but those moments are becoming less and less frequent. especially as I continue to grow in confidence in who I am as an individual and what I bring to this world. I think taking ownership and becoming proud of who I am, including my sexuality, opened up the door for me to explore other ways to live life more unapologetically being me. I was starting to let down a wall that had been up for so long. Sharing my story of living with an eating disorder also opened up a door for me to tap into and uncover a part of myself that has really transformed my life into who I am today in the advocacy work that I do. And when I step into this space, I feel like I'm tapping into my innate self. I feel the energy and passion radiate throughout my body. And I think that we all should feel a natural and positive flow of energy when we live life authentically. A flow of energy that isn't forced, a flow of energy that we allow to be. This work has become a large part of my life today, and when I do this work, it genuinely feels authentic to me. And for that, I'm grateful. I've learned that speaking my mind has also allowed me to be unapologetically myself. Speaking my mind is something that is incredibly challenging for me to do even today. But I've learned that speaking my mind means I'm listening to my heart. And I believe that when you act with your heart, you are being authentic because you're putting what you and your heart need first. And that's important. And sometimes speaking our minds will disappoint others. When we choose to not listen to our heart and respond differently, I think that is when we stray away from being authentic. I'm learning that it's okay to not always be meeting the needs of other people, and to always put other people first is really exhausting. Even though I do really enjoy being there for other people, I've learned that I need to set some boundaries around how I disperse the energy I give. And some days, I might need to give myself a little more of that energy. And when I do, it gives me the energy the next day to show up more authentically. You've probably heard the expression, you need to fill your own cup before you fill others. And that's really hard to do sometimes. But in the times that I have, I've noticed a difference in the way I show up for others. Because when you live life authentically, it's almost as if you're communicating with everyone you interact with is what you see is what you get. And wouldn't you want to experience the same from others? Wouldn't you want to spend time with someone who wears their heart on their sleeves and doesn't compromise themselves, their character, or dignity for others? Authenticity is something we should always be striving for. And I think the more we allow ourselves to remain true to who we are, it gives us the mental capacity to allow ourselves to dig deeper and to learn more about ourselves. And the way we can learn and uncover more about ourselves is to live life authentically to who we are, and to be vulnerable with ourselves, and to be okay with embracing our flaws. And when we begin to understand what we are learning about ourselves, we can then project that learning into the way we interact with others in this world. And I'm a firm believer that the people we attract will match what we put out into the universe. So, let that be food for thought in the type of people you want in your life. All right, I've spent enough time talking about my own experience with trying to be more unapologetically myself. It's time to get you all thinking a little bit. Earlier, I talked about how authenticity is when you live life according to your own values, and you don't compromise those values. Have you ever taken the time to think about some values that you strongly believe in? I want you to take the next 20 to 30 seconds to brainstorm what some of these are. If you have a notepad or journal, maybe you take that out and jot some of those values in there. If not, maybe you mentally take notes. I'll give you that time right now. If you feel like you still need time to think, I encourage you to go back to this prompt at the end of the episode and continue to brainstorm. I find it incredibly powerful when we intentionally give ourselves the time to think and reflect on topics like this. Now that you have that list, I want you to think about how well you live out those values in your everyday life. Do you have any trouble with living out any of these values? Why? As I said earlier, I have a history of people pleasing, and sometimes I lose my authentic self when I try to appease others. But the more I'm okay with the uncertainty that comes with being honest with myself and others, the less afraid I am to do it more consistently. And it's something that I strive for. But I don't know about you, but my mind despises uncertainty. After the episode, I'd also like to encourage you all to spend some time thinking about how you can live out these values more consistently. And if you already are, think about the ways that you are and how you can continue to search for more opportunities to practice living true to those values. I think the more you uncover and allow yourself to be vulnerable, the more you'll uncover new avenues you may want to explore. Because, like I said, we're constantly evolving as human beings. Living life authentically and true to who you are will allow you to love and embrace yourselves even more. I believe that it is in this process that we grow in confidence in ourselves and what we believe in. And the more we can experience, feel, and live out that self-confidence, the more happiness we will find. Because I believe we can experience true happiness when all parts of ourselves are living in alignment with who we know ourselves to be and what we believe in. Well, I hope this episode got you thinking a little bit today about how you are currently living your life through the lens of authenticity. And I hope it sparks some thinking about how you can live life even more authentically and inspire you to be unapologetically yourself today and always, because you're worth it. Much love.